It's always a fun one in Morgantown when the Kansas Jayhawks come to town. We're going to have you covered here in this game preview between West Virginia and the Kansas Jayhawks. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. Let's get the boys rolling. This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Mountaineer Moment. My name's Troy, and this is your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. This is episode 125 of Mountaineer Moment, as we are in early January. Big 12 play well underway at this point. Mountaineers got 2 games under their belt in conference play, 1 loss and 1 win. If you didn't catch that Cincinnati game or you want to relive it a little bit with me, you can go check out that one. Check out the game, or for a little highlight or whatever you want to call it, you can go check out Mountaineer Moment episode 100, and I guess that was 24, breaking down the action of that one as West Virginia holds on to beat Cincinnati to get to 1-1 in conference. And again, a big one in Morgantown on Saturday afternoon coming up when Kansas comes to town. It's always a good game. It's always a fun one. It's always one the fans get up for, the players get up for, and it's going to be a great atmosphere in Morgantown. Mountaineers play Kansas well. They really do at home. And the last 2 times these teams met was the Big 12 opener on the road at Allen Fieldhouse. Mountaineers had never won in that building back on New Year's Eve. 2024, West Virginia knocked off the Jayhawks for the first time ever at Allen Fieldhouse, and I had the privilege of being in the building for that game. It was amazing. Say what you will about Kansas and the refs at Allen Fieldhouse and all that. It was just fun to be in that arena, and even just icing on the cake, cherry on top to come out of there with the win. But so I'll never look at Allen Fieldhouse the same. I've been there once, and West Virginia won that game. But anyway, episode 125 here of Mountaineer Moment. If you are not yet subscribed to Mountaineer Moment, why don't you hit that subscribe button, whatever platform you are on, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. You know the drill. Hit that subscribe button. Be in the know when we have new content coming your way. And that would obviously help me to grow this channel as we continue to pump out episodes. We've been at this thing since late August. You do the math, 125 episodes in at this point, and just super, super grateful. So in this episode, we're not going to waste any more time. In this episode, we are previewing the Kansas Jayhawks in this matchup that they have coming up with the Mountaineers at noon on Fox on Saturday at the Hope Coliseum. So we're going to give you, like we do every game, just a little bit of backstory on this Kansas team, how they got here, who they've played, who they've beaten, who they've lost to, what their struggles are, what they're good at. We're going to give you some numbers to know for this team, some players to be aware of. You might have heard of one of the guys we're going to talk about here in just a moment. And then give you some keys to the game from a West Virginia perspective and what we would like to see here on Mountaineer Moment. If Mountaineers are able to get a signature win, if they're able to knock off a ranked Kansas Jayhawks team, well, what's it going to look like? What are they going to have to do? We'll talk about that at the end of this one. But first thing first, with Kansas, they're entering this matchup with West Virginia. We do this every time, a game preview. If you are new to Mountaineer Moment, we preview every single game on the Mountaineer schedule. Haven't missed one yet. But Kansas, coming into this one, sitting at 11-4, 1-1 record in the conference thus far. Obviously, they're the Jayhawks. They're a blue blood program. They play some tough teams in the non-conference. They picked up some wins in the non-conference over Notre Dame, Syracuse, Tennessee when they were ranked, Missouri, and NC State in overtime. Their losses include falling to North Carolina on the road at Chapel Hill. They lost to Duke on a neutral site. Might have been at the Garden or Vegas, one of those big ones, obviously. And then they were beaten by UConn at home at Fog Island. So 3 losses in the non-conference to 3 pretty decent programs historically, North Carolina, Duke, and UConn. They opened up Big 12 play last Saturday, and they were upset by the UCF Knights, who are turning some heads. already to start conference play, and then it was a game against TCU, which I caught on Tuesday night. Kansas was back at home, and it was a furious late second half comeback by Kansas. I mean, they might have been down 9 with a minute and a half. Pretty typical Kansas Jayhawks at home with a furious comeback. And they force overtime where they would prevail by a final score of 104-100 against TCU. So it was a second half comeback, a late second half comeback that prevented Kansas from falling to 0-2 to start Big 12 play. Now, that's the story. That's how they got here. And next up on the slate for them is a date with the Mountaineers in Morgantown as they hit the road once again in Big 12 play. I'm going to give you a few numbers here, a few things that jump out about this Kansas team through their first 15 games. The first one is 21.8. So we do this too. I throw a random number at you, and then I give you context on what that number means regarding the team that we're talking about. So the first one, 21.8. Only 2 teams in the Big 12, Colorado and Arizona, attempt fewer threes per game than the Kansas Jayhawks. You guessed it, the number that they attempt per game is 21.8 threes. Now, I bring that one up because it's kind of interesting to me because the Mountaineers have played through Big 12 play, through the first 2 games. They played an Iowa State team and a Cincinnati team that look a little different when it comes to this category. So Iowa State, they are lights out from 3. We saw that. We witnessed that. Don't want to relive that. But they're the most efficient three-point shooting team in the conference, over 41% as a team. Pretty staggering number, and they're among the tops in the country in that department. They're among one of the best teams in the country. Go figure. Iowa State can really knock it down from 3. Now, Cincinnati, we talked about this in our game preview with Cincinnati and even post-game. They attempt more threes than anyone in the conference with over 29. So, 8 shot attempts per game more from 3 than the Jayhawks get. And so now we get a Jayhawks team who doesn't shoot a whole lot of threes coming into this one versus a team that's, again, the first game in Big 12 play, you played a team that shoots lights out from 3, made a lot of them against you. You played a Cincinnati team that gets a lot of them up, and now you're playing a Kansas team that, is toward the bottom of the Big 12 in that department as far as shooting from downtown. Now, another number I'm going to throw at you is the number 43. 43. Now, albeit very small sample size, TCU nearly knocked off the Jayhawks. We just talked about that. It was a furious comeback from Kansas to get in that one, force it overtime, and get the win. But they were shooting it well from beyond the arc, was this TCU team. TCU made 15 of their 35 three-point attempts, which is 43%. From downtown. They outscored Kansas by 21 points from beyond the arc, so they made 7 more threes. Kansas was efficient, right? That number I just gave you, 21.8, does not mean that Kansas doesn't make their threes. It just means they don't shoot a lot compared to other teams in the Big 12. Jayhawks made 8 of their 20 attempts from 3. That's 40%. But TCU, going into Allen Fieldhouse and knocking down 15 of 35 threes, 43%, and then not coming out with a win, got to sting a little bit, right? They had that one. They had it. Late second half, some questionable things happened. Questionable coaching, questionable shot selection, questionable everything, leading to Kansas being able to get that win. But 43%, the team that Kansas just played shot it from beyond the arc, knocking down 15 threes. Obviously, we know Honor Huff and the boys, we got some guys that can make some shots, and so keep an eye on that number coming up in Morgantown on Saturday. Now, I'm saving the best for last here as far as I'm concerned, as far as a number that just kind of jumps off the sheet to me after I crunched the numbers a little bit, took a little more research on this one, and it's one of those numbers that's like, something's got to give. Something's got to give. So there's 2 numbers in this final category here. The first number is 41. The second number is 88. 41 and 88. Okay? Something's got to give. So here's what it is, and pay attention closely. So this is a number that recognizes entering the matchup, the Jayhawks offense and Mountaineer defense have really been on opposite sides of the spectrum to begin Big 12 play. So through Kansas's first 2 games against UCF, a loss on the road, and against TCU at home, great comeback. Through their first 2 games, Kansas is assisting on just 41% of their made shots from the field. Their made baskets, they're assisting on just 41%. Not total, not including the shot attempts, but 41% of the time a basket goes in the hoop, right? You make the shot. Only 41% of the time is that coming off of an assist from a Kansas player. Through 2 games. Small sample size, I get it. Other end of the spectrum. You might know where this is going if you know what the West Virginia team has looked like over the last 2 games. West Virginia defense has allowed, against Iowa State and Cincinnati. You already said the number. I would have had you guess, but I already said the number. West Virginia has allowed opposing offenses to assist on 88% of their made shots through 2 games. Now, context, right? Most teams are somewhere between these 2 numbers. 41%. I don't know how particularly low that is, but 88%, I know that's high. But a pretty wide discrepancy here. 88%. In fact, both Iowa State and Cincinnati, they combined to just miss 3 shots. Each team missed 3, didn't miss 3 shots. They had 3 shots each that were unassisted made baskets, right? So in other words, those 2 games against Iowa State and Cincinnati, there were only 6 shots that went through the hoop that were not off of an assist. The rest of them were. 88% of them were. That's a big number. That's a big number. And so just, I don't know, it's not like that's a key to the game or something, but just something to keep an eye on. Kansas, what that number tell you, what 41 tells you and 88, what that tells you is that Kansas is coming in offensively, doing a lot of things off the bounce, right? There's it's not like they're hitting 15 threes and they're all catch and shoot threes, right? Because that number would be way higher. That percentage of assist would be way higher. West Virginia, on the other hand, they're giving up a lot of catch and shoot stuff. They're giving up a lot of pass, and then someone makes a shot. 88% of the time, it's coming off of an assist. So something's got to give, and we'll see what happens in Morgantown as far as that number is concerned. So that's our numbers to know. Insert sponsor here. I almost want to say brought to you by, but I don't have one because this is something that we do here on Mountaineer Moment. Every game we give you some numbers to know regarding the opposing team. 21.8, that's the amount of shot attempts Kansas is getting from beyond the arc. 43%, that's what TCU shot in that game against Kansas from beyond the arc. 41% of the time Kansas is assisting on a made shot, and 88% of the time West Virginia is giving up an assist on a made shot in Big 12 play. Now, players to know for this Kansas Jayhawks team, I mentioned a couple minutes ago, one of the top NBA prospects coming in the NBA draft later on this year, Darren Peterson, standout KU freshman. He's been battling a lingering injury. Even noticed that some in the TCU game. I don't even think he played in overtime because of that injury. Hamstring. It's limited him to just 6 games played. But in those 6 games, Darren Peterson has been phenomenal. He's averaging 22.5 points per game. He's shooting over 43% from downtown. He didn't play in late November, just to give you a context of kind of when he's been out and when he's been on the floor. Started the season, then didn't play in late November. Played 2 games in the first half of December, then didn't play the second half of December, and now he's played in both games for Kansas in conference play against UCF and TCU, and he has played exceptionally well in those 2 games. He has scored 58 points over the course of 2 games to begin Big 12 play. So, incredible talent, incredible gifted player, standing at, I think he's 6'6". I don't know why I kind of get I don't remember what Andrew Wiggins was shooting from beyond the arc at Kansas or anything like that, but for some reason, and I'm just thinking of this right now, I don't know if you agree or disagree, but for some reason that's a number that's a player that's kind of sticking with me right now. And I think they wore the same number. Darren Peterson's 22. And I remember Andrew Wiggins came to Morgantown as a freshman, and I don't remember how that game went, but I remember that. So it's kind of a similar thing. Darren Peterson, highly, highly touted recruit, and he's got a bright future ahead of him in the NBA. So that's number one. Now, I want to give you a few other guys, though, because it's not just about Darren Peterson, right? This team has won 11 games so far this season. They're 11-4, and Peterson's been sidelined for 9 of those games. So I'm going to give you a trio of scorers that this team has, where they come from, what they do best, and then we'll get into our keys to the game. But first one we'll start with is a guy named Trey White. He's a bit of a collegiate journeyman, as I like to call them. This season with Kansas, he's averaging 15 points, 7 boards. He's shooting over 40% from downtown. He had previous stops at USC, Louisville, and last year Illinois. So he's been around the block. Played in all the major conferences there are, USC, Louisville, Illinois, and now at Kansas in the Big 12. So keep an eye on Trey White, averaging 15.7 boards, 40% from downtown. Really, really great season he's having for Kansas. Flory Badunga, 6'10", sophomore from the Congo. He played just 16 minutes per game last season, obviously sitting behind Hunter Dickinson. He was averaging 5 points, 5 boards, but this year he has elevated his game through the first half of the season, 30 minutes per game, so almost doubling that, almost tripling his points and doubling his rebounds, 14 points, 9 rebounds, and over 2 blocks per game. He has 5 double-doubles and probably 4, 5, 6 other games where he's been really close to getting a double-double. Badunga, the 6'10" sophomore from the Congo, having himself a fine season with the Kansas Jayhawks. The last one is part of that scoring trio for Kansas. All of these guys averaging in double figures to go along with Darren Peterson. Melvin Council Jr., former teammate, by the way, of West Virginia's Chance Moore last year at St. Bonaventure. He's transitioned nicely into the Big 12. He's filling the stat sheet night in, night out. 14 points, 4 boards, 5 assists per game. His best game of the season came in that aforementioned 77-76 win over NC State in overtime, when the senior guard had 36 points, making 9 of 15 from beyond the arc. And I was like, well, his numbers from beyond the arc don't look to be, over like that impressive. And I was right. So he's 9 of 15 from beyond the arc in one game. And then, the remaining 14 games, he's had just 11 threes. He's got 20 made threes on the season, 9 of which came in one game against NC State. So kind of an interesting little point there. But Kansas team, obviously, deep, talented, highly recruited guys, blue blood program. They're coming to Morgantown. It's, Mountaineers are an underdog. We've seen this movie time and time again in Big 12 play. It's just different players on the court this year for Kansas as they continue to produce NBA talent. Obviously, who they are and what they've done over their run in the Big 12 is phenomenal. Took a step back last year, and hoping that they're going to take a step back this year. Hopefully, Mountaineers can knock them off. And we're going to talk about what West Virginia needs to do in order to make that happen as we close out this episode. And for West Virginia, so far this season, there's been a lot. And if you've watched Mountaineer Moment at all or listened to me, you know that I'm going to say this. Like, there's been a lot on Honor Huff's shoulders, and it's been too much at times. If you look at West Virginia's stat sheet against Cincinnati, and I caught this even as I was recording that episode post-game, Honor Huff not only was the team's leading scorer, he was the team's leading rebounder. The 5'10", he's listed at 5'10", might not be that, 5'10" guard out of Brooklyn, doing it the Brooklyn way. He had 8 rebounds, 24 points, made 6 threes against Cincinnati, and was huge in West Virginia getting that win. And he bounced back in a great way. He had his, he'd probably tell you his worst game of the season against Iowa State, 1 of 9, 1 of 8 from downtown, but bounced back against Cincinnati, and West Virginia needed every bit of it in the 62-60 win. 24 points, 8 rebounds for Honor Huff, who was getting it done. But So he's key, right? I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to sit here and think, well, Honor Huff can go for like 6 or 7 points. And I didn't even do that on purpose. He can go for 6 or 7 points, and West Virginia's going to win, right? We're not sitting here thinking that. At this point in the season, because what we've seen from his help or lack thereof at times, we're going to need a big showing from Honor Huff. We might need 25 points. We might need 30 points. He's obviously more than capable. You like what, he's coming into this Kansas game having made 6 out of 10 from beyond against Cincinnati. Kansas is going to be keying in on him. We get that. But still, you're going to need Honor Huff to be big. Maybe not be the team's leading rebounder again, but whatever it takes, I guess. So I think another key, certainly offensively, man, you can't have a showing that you had against Cincinnati, against Kansas from some of those guys in the starting lineup and expect to not get blown out, right? And I'm not even going to say win, but expect to stay in the game. If Jasper Floyd's going to give you 0, if Harlan Obioha is going to give you 0, if Belo's going to struggle, and yeah, I mean, you just can't expect that. At times, you've heard me on Mountaineer Moments say it, West Virginia's offense is Honor Huff shooting a 3 and Chance Moore coming off the bench driving hard at the bucket. Both of those guys are really talented at those two things. However, you need help. And obviously, late game situation against Cincinnati, it was Eagle staff knocking down a 3 to give you the lead with 1:10 seconds left. That was huge. That's the kind of help we're talking about, but we're not talking about in just specific late game situations. We're talking about help throughout the full 40 minutes, right? I mean, how much of a relief would it be to Honor Huff, to Chance Moore, if we get an aggressive and efficient Jasper Floyd? If we get an aggressive and efficient Obioha or Belo in the starting lineup where one of these guys gives you 15. I mean, think about the relief that would give you. And all of those guys this season have given you 15 or more, at times. Like, it's not like they can't do it, but they're not doing it consistently. And we're not going to sit here and ask you, all 3 of those guys even need to be in double figures. Because that might not happen. Probably won't happen. But if one of them can give you 15, an efficient 15, rebound the basketball, play some good defense, it's going to help you tremendously. Because I think, now again, a shooter can have an off night. We saw that with Honor Huff against Iowa State. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, he's invincible now. He got that one out of his way. He could very well come into the Coliseum and have a bad shooting afternoon. Chance Moore could struggle. Chance Moore could get in foul trouble. Chance Moore, you know what I mean? Like, there's some things that we've grown accustomed to already with this, new look Mountaineer team that's halfway through the season already. It's incredible. And, we're not going to sit here and say that those things can't happen. But so far, what's the most consistent offense that we've had has been Honor Huff and Chance Moore. And so if we're going to say we're going to get that, what else do we need to get? Well, we need to get some more out of the starting lineup. Eagle staff still waiting for him to go off, right? He did his thing a little bit against Cincinnati. Has had some moments earlier, a couple games this season, went for 20 against Xavier. He's had a few moments, but he's also had a few moments that weren't so pretty. You hope maybe that shot against Cincinnati that he hit just boosts his confidence through the ceiling, because, we're still waiting. I'm not gonna say like 40, right? He had 2 40-plus point games last season. I'm not sitting here waiting for a 40-point game, but the dude's capable. The dude can give you 25. He really can. Not saying he's going to do that night in, night out. But there's going to be a game in Big 12 play. I fully believe it. A game or two where he's going to give you 25. Make it against Kansas, right? That might be what it takes, what it's going to require for you to knock off Kansas, right? Can you imagine not even throwing numbers out there with Honor Huff and Chance Moore, but let's just, they're doing their thing. We know what they're going to do. But then you get 20 from Eagle staff, and Jasper or Belo or Obioha, one of them gives you 12 of the 15, or combined, those guys go for 25, right? Because against Cincinnati, those 3 guys, right? I mean, this puts it in perspective. You beat a Cincinnati team that's not Kansas, that's not figuring to be among the best teams in the Big 12, but you got to win at home, that you grinded out, and Belo, Obioha, and Jasper Floyd, 3 guys in your starting lineup, combined to go 1 for 7 and 2 points. Again, I don't care how hot Honor Huff gets. I don't care how reliable, dependable Chance Moore is going to be. If those three guys give you 2 points on 1 of 7, you're not beating the Jayhawks. Flat out, straight up, period, right? What's that number need to be? I don't know. But if they combine for 25, makes a world of difference. Makes a world of difference. So offensively, those are some of the keys. And then defensively, I think we kind of already have hit on it, even in the course of this episode. But 3-point defense, three-pointers have hurt the Mountaineers, especially like one individual knocking down a lot of them. We remember the story with Momcilovic at Iowa State. Celestine of Cincinnati came into that game averaging 4 points a game, and he came in and knocked down 5 out of 9 from beyond the arc, helped them stay in that game. Cincinnati, 12 of 35 from downtown against West Virginia. Mountaineers shot the ball more efficiently from beyond the arc, 11 of 23, almost 50%. But there's been games this year. You think of, I wasn't even thinking about the Clemson game, but the Clemson game, right? Mountaineers have a lead late second half, and a big man pops out for 2 threes in that game where you struggle to defend. Xavier goes nuclear from beyond the arc. Iowa State, know the story there, just said it. Cincinnati, Celestine keeps them in this game and almost wins them the game with his hot shooting. So 3-point defense, particularly on a couple individuals, has been detrimental to this team. And so keep an eye on that. Again, Kansas doesn't shoot them like Cincinnati as far as the amount of times they're throwing them up, but they might. And they got obviously some guys on this talented team that can knock it down. So 3-point defense is certainly going to be key. And then overall, a theme that we've mentioned several times on Mountaineer Moment, second half, right? Second half defense, because what we don't want to see is West Virginia go up by 10 at halftime, which we do want to see, but we don't want to see them take a 35-25 lead into halftime. Kansas comes out angry. They score 47 points in the second half. You lose by 10. Right? You just don't want that. You just don't want that. And at times, there's been a fear of that this season. At times, that's been a reality this season where a team has gone off in the second half. We've said it. Second half defense, especially because it's Kansas, man. Look what they just did against TCU. A second half comeback. I get it's at Allen Fieldhouse, and they're a completely different animal there. They got some other animals called the zebras working for them there too, and I get it. Hopefully that don't happen in Morgantown. But second half defense, don't collapse. Play full 40 minutes, right? Because if we can sit here and say, because in none of West Virginia's losses have I been able to say, well, I was happy with their defense for the most of that game. There's always one half that you're like, whoa, that wasn't good. That makes sense why they lost. If you can come out, play full 40 minutes of defense, Honor Huff knocks down some shots, you get a little help from your friends, Chance Moore does his thing, you box out, you make winning plays, you can knock off Kansas. You can do it. It's going to take a team effort. It's going to take their best performance of the season because we've said it here and said it time and time again. West Virginia hasn't beaten anybody this season, right? They beat Pitt. They beat Cincinnati. Both teams, Cincinnati's 8-7. Pitt on the season, you beat them, a while ago. Obviously, they're 7-8. So 2 teams right around 500. You haven't beat a ranked team. You haven't beat anybody that's going to make the dance yet. Kansas is probably going to make the dance. You beat them. That's a resume win. So let's see what the Mountaineers can do. Again, tip-off scheduled for 12 p.m. Eastern time on Fox from Hope Coliseum. Going to be a great atmosphere in Morgantown. Let's go Mountaineers. That's a wrap on episode 125 of Mountaineer Moment. We will see you next time. We'll see you for post-game reaction and analysis on this one. Breaking it down in Morgantown. We'll see you then.